Hey guys, this is the Coffees for Closers podcast, also streaming live on LinkedIn. I'm here with a dear friend, Warren Zenna. Say hello.
Hello. Good to see you, Chels.
Yes. We're going to have a conversation today about branding, the buyer experience, generating revenue, all things business growth related. And I'm going to let Warren introduce himself.
Thanks. Hey, Chelsea. It's good to have me. I appreciate it so much. You and I, we've had this conversation 1,000 times, but for your listeners, I'm the founder of a company called the CRO Collective. Started the company, I can't believe it, almost 6 years ago. It's kind of crazy. Essentially, what we're trying to accomplish is a opportunity or a problem in the marketplace, which is that chief revenue officers, it's sort of an ambiguous role. It has a very, loose usage. It's like tofu. You can make a CRO do anything almost, and it's a problem for both the CRO and for companies whom are looking to try to expand their C-suite and build revenue engines. And so we help CROs by training and developing them and giving them more clarity on the competencies needed to run the entire revenue operation. We also help businesses become ready for CROs or CRO ready so that when they hire a CRO, there's a greater likelihood that the CRO appointment will be successful. And that's what we do.
Yeah, I actually took your course recently. And I need to plug it really quick because it was honestly amazing. So I met Warren a couple years ago. I was interested actually in the program, and that's how we met. So I reached out and I said, I want to take your CRO training program. I'd been a fractional CRO at that point on and off for years, and I was thinking about pursuing a full-time CRO position. Honestly, like my agency, which I have now and I've had for a long time, it was in a transition point where I just didn't want to do done-for-you content anymore or done-for-you outreach. And I thought maybe a full-time role, maybe it's time. And I met Warren and he said, I don't know. I don't know if you should take the training unless you want to pursue a CRO role full-time because fractionally it's not best to do this fractionally. And in going through the program, I can completely agree. Like, I think a lot of companies hired me on with that title, and it wasn't an accurate title because they were saying to me, okay, now you need to go pull in deals. Really what I was is more like a glorified head of sales, even an individual contributor / head of sales, and doing some marketing and customer success for them. So when going through the program, I have so much clarity now in what this role is. And I work with a lot of CROs because at this point, now we're 2 years later, my agency provides sales training for B2B teams on how to leverage LinkedIn so they can, increase sales. And I understand the CRO so much more now in the role and what they're up against just from going through your program. And if I did decide to ever become a full-time CRO and do that role again, I would have a better understanding of what to look out for from the company hiring me. And I think that's really important because it is such an ambiguous term, right? Like people don't know what that even means.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And it was great to have you there. And I think that, as you know now, right, my response to you was, as you said, I'm sort of trying to be, as it were, as much as I can. I don't know if I will be, but in my own little world, to be almost like a barrier between people who are going into the job with the wrong idea. I don't want people in the CRO role that don't know what it is. I think it's not good for business. Mm-hmm. I want people to be going into the role with their eyes open. Mm-hmm. And knowing exactly what it is and what it's supposed to be doing. And most importantly is how to evaluate the company that's hiring them so they know whether or not that they're on the same page about it. And most of the time they're not. And I find, in fact, if you look at someone who has failed in the role, and unfortunately too many CROs do fail in the role, what they'll tell you is things like, we couldn't get our numbers, or I missed numbers, or a number of various obvious reasons that people would make the claim. But when you really look back and you unpack the reason that they didn't hit their numbers, it very rarely, not rarely, but often doesn't have anything to do with that person's abilities or competencies. It's because they didn't have the right job to begin with. Mm-hmm. It was really the way that they set the job up, and there wasn't an understanding between the company and the CRO as to what you do, how to do it, what your scope is, and how we could support that to happen. That doesn't happen with CMOs and CFOs. It's very clear what those people do when you hire them. Yeah. It's just whether they're good at it or not. Whereas the CRO can be sometimes someone that runs sales, someone that runs partnerships, someone that just gets customer retention. But unfortunately, rarely is it the real job, which is I need someone to oversee our revenue operation and bring the alignment that's needed across all these functions so that we can scale. Those are CROs. Those are the people whom are I may be making the distinction here between revenue and sales. They're not the same thing.
But they confuse them.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Someone says the word chief revenue officer, they think, well, it's got the word revenue in it, so we should be running sales. It's understandable logic, but revenue is more of a larger encompassing term. Sales is a motion. It's getting someone in a conversation and having them make a commitment to a deal. That's a sale. Revenue is all the machinery that's necessary to make that happen. And when you think about the business that way, you have a different perspective on how you operate. And companies know this, but they don't appoint people properly. So what I'm trying to do here is maybe bring more precision to the definition of the role in general so that companies hire the right people and that the job is supported properly. Because when CROs are hired this way and they're competent for it, it makes a huge difference for the company. So this is sort of like the mission, as it were, right? That's what the meeting is going to be about later today.
We have an event later today, and it is true. Like, you need someone who can oversee sales, marketing, and customer success. These things tend to be siloed.
Yep.
Right. So bringing someone in who can do all those things is really important. Okay, we're going to pivot though. We're going to talk about.
Let's do it.
The buyer journey. So one of the biggest things I love about you is that you understand the buyer. A lot of times companies, and even when they come to me, they will talk all about them and like their products and their service and how awesome they are. And I get that, but they don't necessarily consider the buyer. So even though I'm sitting there training their teams on how to leverage LinkedIn, we're starting typically with the conversation around the buyer and something very simple, which is when they get to your pages, your LinkedIn page, what do they see? What message is there? Within 5 seconds, do they understand what you guys do, right? So that buyer journey is step one. What are you seeing in the marketplace when it comes to like buyer experience, buyer journeys? Like how are teams missing this a bit?
I'm thinking it's getting worse.
Oh no.
And I think the reason it's getting worse is, actually, I think we're sort of in like a transition period, frankly. I think that it got really bad, and maybe it's continuing to get a little bit bad, but I do think that there's a transition period that we're in right now, and because of that, it feels sort of a little nebulous. But what I'm seeing happening is there's a lot of reasons why customers are not listened to or why sales is so internally focused. So we all have this experience where we're speaking to a salesperson, and like you said, they're talking about their product and their features and their pricing, and they haven't even asked you a question yet. This is unfortunately a very common thing. There are a couple of culprits here. One is someone who's just, and we could say this all the time, it's sort of an easy layup to just say it's a bad salesperson, right? Doesn't know what he's doing, is a lousy salesperson, doesn't understand sales. That's not always true.
Yeah.
Many times what it really is, it's the way that person is incentivized and managed. So if I'm going to market as a salesperson and my incentives are to get as many deals closed as possible or as many certain types of conversations as possible or fill my CRM with certain parameters as possible, I'm going to do things that drive those outcomes as opposed to, let's say my incentive was try and get people to ask you more questions or to explore proposals for you or ask you for proposals as opposed to you asking them for one. And I know these are hard things to measure, but what I mean is it would change the way salespeople are incentivized, and I think they would behave differently. So that's one thing. I think organizations are not designed for salespeople to do the right thing because they're not rewarded for it.
I agree with that, and I can even say that with my LinkedIn trainings. So we teach sales teams how to leverage LinkedIn, and then on marketing side, we teach them. So on the sales team, it is always driven by meetings. How many meetings did you set, right?
Yep.
And that's why they spam the hell out of people, and they send the Calendly links, and they just hammer their messages out. But I think they should be incentivized by how many conversations they start. So especially like a sales rep or a BDR whose sole job is to book meetings, how many conversations did you have on LinkedIn or even via email or on the phone? How many people did you pre-qualify? Because it shouldn't be about meetings. It should be qualified meetings.
Right. And then it's also defining qualified. Okay, so I agree with you, but unfortunately the word qualified is not a universal term.
That
it could be
true.
you could define it any way you want. So I could say, for example, in our world, in my world, a qualified lead is someone who said yes to a meeting. Right? I mean, I know we don't do that.
Yeah.
There's probably more to it, but what I mean is a undefined or a loosely defined or a poorly engineered marketing qualified lead or sales qualified lead isn't worth anything.
No.
So it's the definition of these things that are important. So the reason why I'm a bit more focused on this, and I appreciate you saying that, is for a couple of things. One is I was trained that way. So when I was younger, remember, I'm an old dude, you know, so I was trained without all the stuff that we have today. I didn't have the benefit of all the tools that we had. I literally just had to get on the phone and make calls and stuff, or go meet people and shake hands. And so it over time, it sort of just trained me to know the difference between a false lead and a real lead. And then the other part of it too is I think there's a bit of, I hate the word, empathetic.
Okay.
And, you know, so I think about logic, right? So if I'm talking to somebody, okay, I get a lot of inbound now because I've done a lot of work on this. So now people call me or they write me, and I'm sort of thinking about, the first question I'm asking is, what was it that had them call me?
Same.
Not, oh, good, a deal.
No,
right?
me neither.
I don't think that way at all. I think, okay, so let me make sure that this person is, what this person wants is consistent with what I offer.
Right.
First thing. And so my dialogue is almost always the same. So someone will say, like, you called me, right? You said, I want to take your course. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
I don't say, sure, here's the registration form, which a lot of people would say I'm stupid. I should have just had
And
you
I would
sign
have
up.
literally just paid you.
Right.
Like, that's the other thing.
I
would have just been
understand
like,
that. But you know, I'm not looking to just take somebody's money, because I look at it more like, I want Chelsea to get something out of it. Like, it's just not enough for you to give me my fee. It's more important that you did the right thing, and for a couple of reasons. One is, I guess, you know, all right, I care, I guess. I do. You know, I don't like seeing people being ripped off. It's not cool. Also, it's also selfish, is that, you know, you're going to come out of it and you're either going to advocate for me, you're going to tell other people because it was great for you.
It was.
You're going to do it organically. I'm not going to have to ask you to. You're going to do it because you want to. And then also, you might either refer me to people, or you might say, I want to work with you more, right? And so everything has a really great sort of energy flow to it, right? If I'm committed to making sure that my customer is really getting the right thing, and I know that it's something I can do, then we have a good relationship. It's going to be good. It's going to work out. I know that I can help you, because what you want is what I can do. I'm not worried about it, and I'll confidently help you. But if you're a little off, I might say, you know, I can tell in my brain, I can say, you know, this person's probably going to complain halfway in, and they're going to go, you know, I shouldn't be here. And that's my fault.
I agree with that.
That's my fault.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I did my job, I would be able to suss them out and say, you know what, this isn't right for you. And so I will do this on occasion. I will, like, kick people away and say, look, you know, you're not ready or whatever. And I think the third part of it is I'm a little bit more of a psychologist. I'm curious.
I agree with that.
And I like to know what people are looking for. I'm curious. I'm interested in it. Like, why? Like, why do you want that? What are you thinking about? What's going on with you? Because I'm interested in it. I'm interested in the way people think and what they're thinking about and what they struggle with naturally. And I think that that's another part of the customer centricity, is thinking about, like, what people are thinking about and why they're having this problem. And, you know, many times, you know this, right? So doctors are a good example. Let's say, you know, you know this well, right? You go to a doctor because you have a symptom. And you say, you know, I have this symptom. And it makes sense that you'd go to a doctor that specializes in the area of your body where that symptom is. It makes sense. Of course you'd do that. Now, a good doctor would say, okay, people that come in with this symptom may have a different problem than the one I solve. So would I say, no, you need to go to this kind of doctor? Or would I just take the money from you and help you with your symptom? A lot of doctors just help you with your symptom.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that as someone who was misdiagnosed for over 20 years, they do not get curious.
They don't.
That's why I don't even use the doctor analogies anymore, because I'm like.
But it's a good analogy for this side of it.
It is
which
so
is
good.
they don't care.
They don't now.
They should.
They should, and they used to, right?
They used to. I agree with
and
you.
the whole problem finding thing,
it's
right?
an incentive issue too. It's because the way they're paid today
is
changed.
Yeah.
And so
Pushing
the
medicine.
incentive system in businesses, they drive behaviors, and you, right, as the practitioner, are the only final consciousness in that equation, whether you're going to agree with that. And look, I don't blame people. I mean, if I spent $500 million on medical school, I have this practice, and now all of a sudden my entire income got screwed over, and I have to feed my family and everything.
Yeah.
You have to make some really messed up decisions sometimes. And so I think that what's happening too is that if you hire people in organizations that are designed to sell, and their job is they're being paid based on a certain metric, they're going to do that. So we have to be smarter customers.
I agree, but also even as because both of us are in roles of sales leadership and branding and growth, but so with the doctors, right, they're paid based on how many patients they see.
Yep.
As salespeople, they're typically paid as junior salespeople how many meetings they set.
Yep.
But you said something that's very interesting. It's getting curious,
Yeah,
right? So
curiosity.
we know that we need to do away with just incentivizing based on meetings. And the way to do that and the way to actually figure out what qualified means, is time. Those salespeople need to have time doing this and understanding customers and having calls, right? Leadership needs to give them a pre-qualifying doc, which I always make for junior reps. But also they need to get curious. That's the number one thing. You have to problem solve and try to figure out what the problem is and be curious and have those conversations. And if you don't have curiosity inside of you, you should not be a salesperson. Because you could be taught, I think, all the other things. But having curiosity and being able to have a conversation, those two things are innate in someone, and you can't teach those. You could teach anyone about a product and the features and the buyers.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's a good point. Let me think about that a bit. I'm trying to think if I've always been
Curious?
I mean, I think so. I'm a people person. I like talking to people. I'm very inquisitive. So I'd say yes. But if I could track, which I can, an improvement, no question, about my sales ability from 25 years ago till today, what was the skill that I developed? Because something happened. I wasn't naturally good.
No, me neither.
Exactly. So there was some training involved. So there's a couple of things. I think that if I look back on it, I would say that it's a combination of things. So let's say I'm now in a position, which I'm sure you would be, in a position where I'm hiring salespeople and I'm listening to them and I'm able to see what they're doing wrong, right? First thing I'd be asking myself is, as a sales leader who's running a team, I'd say, why is it that Steve is behaving this way on these phone calls? Does it have to do with the way that I've structured his incentives that he's doing this? Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I'm managing this person incorrectly.
Maybe.
The other one, it could be perception. It could be that he came from sales roles where he was always told to do his thing a certain way, and so he's just on kind of remote, and now you see him doing the same thing because that's what he's been trained to do. So it's not his fault. That's just what he told. So you sit him down and you go, listen, let me ask you a question. When you got that guy on the phone, what happened? He'd say, well, it didn't work out. I'd say, well, what were the indicators that it would have worked out? What had you believe that was going to go well?
Right.
And, I want the person to start thinking oh, you know what? I don't know, actually. Okay, well.
So you're asking for introspection.
Exactly. Do a little bit more inquiry. Let's say it's not curiosity. Let's call it a different word, because I think you're right. Curiosity is like a personality profile. But, inspection or due diligence is not.
No.
It's lawyers do that.
That's
and
true.
many times they're not very curious. They're just sort of doing a process, right?
Yeah.
Nothing against lawyers. I'm just saying people who are more investigative or data driven are very diligent about asking a lot of questions because they're thinking about numbers and metrics. So what I'm saying is I would say it's a combination of things. If I would be really specific, I'd say one is how could I reward people that are on the phones or on doing outbound or whatever, or taking calls. How can I incentivize them in ways that the behaviors are? So, for example, if I were to incentivize people that I want everybody that you speak to, I don't want you to just get a meeting. I want the meetings that you get, that the person has to be able to answer yes to these 5 questions.
Yeah, and that's what I make.
Exactly.
I make like little lists with questions to teach them and get them started. But I think you're right too about the second one. Like people come in and they're so trained, and I see this with pipeline. So we teach them how to develop a pipeline using LinkedIn as the foundation, and then other conversion methods. So like cold email and cold calling. It is crazy to me because we were all taught this. I was taught this too. I started sales 20 years ago. Yeah, I was during that like coffees for closers mentality. Like, where do you think I got the podcast name from? I was banging on doors, so I started off doing door-to-door sales, and then I was I had a finance degree, so I was going through getting my finance degree. I was doing that to make some money. It was like the sales manager of a gym and all of that. Like then I started with mortgages and finance, and it was like always that same mentality, like make as many calls as possible, be aggressive. Like that was the vibe. And people still think you could do that same thing, like pick up the phone and just hammer out cold calls and kind of be aggressive and say, when are you available? Tuesdays or Thursdays, I have 10, 11 open, right? Like that's what we were taught. So now in 2025, people are still doing that. And they're trying that same cold calling approach on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Or through cold email.
Yeah, they're thinking that a skill set is transferable from one platform to another platform. They don't understand how to transfer the skill to a different way, that people don't respond the same way in all environments, right?
And even on cold calling, like people have changed. So when we started selling, people didn't have the internet.
Yep.
So they couldn't. They had one thing,
or the door.
That was it.
Yeah.
Or the door.
Yeah.
So they had to listen to me. If I piqued their interest within the first 15 seconds, and they wanted, because I was doing door-to-door alarm sales, and they wanted to hear about alarm systems, they had to listen to me because they couldn't just go on their phone and start looking. If they had to actually listen to the salesperson, you pick up the phone and someone says something, you're like kind of interested, you had to listen. The buyer journey changed. They can't just go on the internet and do their own research. But today, they're 70% through their buying decision before they'll ever talk to a rep. That's why content's important. But like going back to what I'm saying, people are still trying to pretend that people don't have access to information. They have so much access. So you can't be that aggressive. Like you need to shake them, get their attention, aid them with content out in the outside world, right? Mainly on LinkedIn and B2B sales. And then like have conversations in a softer way with people, almost reverse psychology. Like you're not trying to book the meeting, have them ask you for the demo.
100%, yes.
Like it's a completely different environment, but people are still trying to build a pipeline the way they did 20 years ago.
Yes.
And they're damn good at sales. Like the one thing I will give these people, they're very good with rebuttals and closing deals and like enterprise level deals. Like they know how to close. It's the pipeline thing that they're just like, wah.
Yes.
Their brains can't handle it.
I think that's true. I think what you're saying is right. I think there is a weirdly sort of like dangle information and let them come and bite at it, as opposed to trying to get a hook in their mouth. And I think there's a conflict between the way people are incentivized and what works, and we haven't really unlocked that yet. And a lot of it has to do with time. So also the other problem with incentives isn't only the thing that we're asking you to deliver, it's the speed and the amount with which we want you to deliver.
Yes.
So let's say I say to you, I want you to get as many meetings as possible this week. So now I've done is I put a time limit on, or a time crunch on that expectation, which I'm going to also, now I'm going to enhance how I'm going to do it to make that deadline. So I think time, crunched time, short-termism is a disease that we've created in the way that we want business. We want businesses, understandably, to grow at a certain rate. I'm not naive to these things, and I understand why. And if I'm an investor, I want the company to like have quarterly results and growth. I get it. I'm not naive to it, but we've sort of created a system that also weirdly creates the bad outcomes, because in pursuit of those short-term outcomes, we do things the wrong way. It's a very weird thing.
That's a life thing.
I think you're right. Well, I took a job once, and I say this a lot to my clients who take my course and they want to go become a CRO. I ask them, out of the million things you have to ask, one of the things that's really important is you want to find out what the company's growth goals are. Okay, and you're asking this question for the obvious reasons, but you're really looking at it for another reason, which is you're going to find out the culture that you're going to get into. So if they say to you, yeah, well, we want to be acquired in 3 years. Okay, this is a much different context than they say we want to be the best top security company in the world in 50 years from now.
Yeah.
They're different. It's a different context, you know?
Yeah, it is.
And so if someone says to you, we want to grow our company until we can get it closed and get it bought in 3 years, that means you're going to be working in an environment where everything's going to be crunched. Everything, all the results you're going to be asked to produce are going to be crunched. Yeah. And you're going to have to get them done a lot faster, and you're probably not going to be able to. And you're going to have to then do things to make that happen that you normally won't make sense to you or not intuitive, but you have to do it because that's what you're being asked to do. And then there's this whole sort of like other weird culture to this, which is, being a good soldier.
Yeah, I'm not one of those.
Which is, come on, what we hired you for is to go out and do this thing. Yes, we understand it's not intuitive or it doesn't work, but we hired you to do this anyway. Are you on the team? Are you on board or not with this, right? Because that's what we need from you. I need more deals closed. Yeah. So I don't want to hear all these excuses to you about customer this company. Just get the job done. That's what you're being paid for. And we thought we hired a good soldier. And that's a very persuasive thing to say to somebody who wants to be a good soldier, right? You're like, oh man, And so what ends up happening is all of a sudden you find yourself 6 or 7 months or 10 months into a job, and you find yourself doing things in the spirit of being a good soldier that you'd never do if you were running a business on your own. But it's not your business, it's their business, and they're paying you. So a lot of this also has to do with the fact that, and again, it has to do with the fact that I'm running my own thing now.
Yeah, well, this is what the other disease. I think most CROs have a disease where they shouldn't actually be working for someone else. I think they should be running their own companies.
I agree. But CROs who are good at their job ultimately become CEOs and founders. It's very common. Yeah. You're correct. It's a very certain kind of profile. But I'm saying I think all these things are, I think, indicative of what we're talking about here, which is why it is that pervasively customers feel like they're the last.
You're right, because it's not about them.
Yeah.
All right, so one thing I really want to talk about, and I was like, we have to talk about this on the podcast, is the side of branding. So talking about messaging now.
Okay, yeah, my God, yes.
The BOCA test.
Okay,
so when I'm talking to clients, I always say to them, okay, explain to me what you do as if you were speaking to a 10-year-old or a grandmother, right? Explain it to me. Because, a 10-year-old is sometimes hard for people to understand, especially if they don't have or haven't had a 10-year-old. They're like, well, I don't understand the level. So I say, okay, explain it to me like you're talking to a grandma. Dumb it down, because your clients, although that they're very smart and they understand jargon, they're quick, right? They're coming on your profile very quickly. They have 5 seconds. Confusion kills skills. We need clarity. So within 5 seconds, I need everyone to be able to understand what you do at a basic level. Now, you created something called the BOCA test.
I came up with an idea, which, it's probably still something we could probably do.
We're definitely going to go do it. We need a reason to go to Florida.
I mean, it's a good idea. So it all happened because of an actual experience. So my parents are Jews. They live in Boca with all the other Jews. So I used to go down there all the time and hang out with my mom and her friends. And, she's not with us anymore, but it's okay. When she was, alive, my mother was very smart. She was a very, very smart woman. She had her own businesses. She was very successful, my mom. And I consider her to be, a smarter member of that particular demographic because of that. But, what we do is sort of complicated,
Yeah.
It's not like I sell food or something, or I sell pizza. I'm trying to explain what a CRO is and what a revenue operation is. This is like, whatever. So anyway, it was a long time ago, and it wasn't this job. It was another job I was working at that was very complicated. And I was trying to explain to my mom and her friends, who are all very smart, what I do, and they didn't understand it. So it just occurred to me, like, how would I have to explain this to them so that they did? And I did. I was able to kind of engineer it in a way that had them go, oh, okay. And the way that I did it, I found myself in this conversation coming to a realization that it should be easy for me to explain this to them. Like, I should be able to do this for anybody. Why not, right? I mean, if I'm able to, if I took the time to engineer a messaging strategy that was easy for anybody to understand, it would not only help me when I'm in Boca talking to my parents, what would be more importantly is, let's say I'm at a conference with a lot of people, and that weird moment when someone asks you what you do for a living, and you sort of don't really know how to explain it, and so there's a miscommunication, and then maybe even missed opportunities. And so I thought, wow, I should be able to explain what I do to my grandmother.
Right.
And that resulted in then me thinking about this when it came to my clients, because as you know, I have a marketing agency, and we would do this all the time with our clients. We'd say, can you explain to your grandmother? And then that resulted in me coming up with this idea of something called the Boca test, which is basically, it was an idea, which I still think is still a good idea, is to get a panel of grandmas from Boca, like 3 or 4 of them, and have people come in and sit down like this and explain, do a pitch and explain to these women what they do, or men. I don't know. For some reason, I don't know why.
No, I like grandmas.
Grandmas is better. Yeah, I agree. There's something kind of cool about it. Yeah. And if they should see if they understand it or not, and maybe have them even come back a bunch of times until they get it right. And I think that aside from it being a really cool thing, the Boca test, and a cool, like, it would be great entertainment.
So fun.
Almost like a Shark Tank-ish sort of thing. But the difference is that what you're doing is you're refining your message in a way that, you can communicate it. And the exercise itself would probably have people have to really think about how they can articulate things in a way that's simple. And I did it mainly because, as you and I agree, we talk all the time. Most people don't. Most people don't know how to talk about what they do. They don't explain it clearly. You go to their website and you're like, what does this company do?
Well, especially with SaaS, they're like, we make flying unicorns that produce 10 million in revenue for you a year.
Right.
And you're like, no, you do cold outreach.
Right.
It's constant, even in like security, like cybersecurity. The whole industry, compliance. I just did one with a company for compliance, and I did it within like 10 minutes. Like, guys, this is what you do. Just say what you do. We created
what
a
do you
headline,
do?
slogan.
This is what I ask people. This is the question I ask. I'm like, you know what? I stop people when I don't understand them. I say, let me ask it a different way. What problem do you solve?
Yeah, I asked that one too a lot.
And they don't know how to answer a lot of times.
Well, that's the biggest issue.
I'm like, specifically, what's the problem in the market that you solve? And then the second question is, how does your solution differ from other options?
Yep.
And that's it. You should be able to say, we solve this problem this way, or in this unique way, right? And, then it should result in more discussion. But at least now, 2 things have happened. If I say to somebody, we solve this problem, that alone, from our earlier part of this discussion, should identify whether or not the person has that problem or not. Like if they say, oh, okay, I get that problem. That's not why I called you. Okay, well then it's the end of conversation. It's like you don't have the problem that we solve. Okay,
right.
So great. I'm glad we were able to clear that up.
Yeah.
What is the problem you have? Maybe I know someone that can help you with that. That's it. But what I see a lot of salespeople do is they're like, well, we don't solve that problem, but maybe we could solve that problem too. And they try to expand their solution to get the deal. And it's like, you walked off the reservation, dude. Stay on the reservation. This is what you do, and find people that need that, and that's your market, and it's fine. So here's what I'm proposing is, in a way, aside from the obvious, you and I creating this thing, which would be kind of cool.
We totally should.
Is this.
We're going to do it.
You could do the Boca test. So what I would do is I would say, people listening to this right now that this resonates with, first I'd ask you is, you may think, or maybe you don't, you may think right now that the way you've articulated your offering is clear. First of all, do you know that? Like, have you ever asked anybody this question? Like, find out from people that don't know you whether or not it is or not. That's one thing.
That don't know you.
Exactly.
Not with internal
people. That don't know you. Just ask them if it's clear.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is, and maybe even in parallel, is get a bunch of people from outside your company to get on a Zoom call or whatever you want to do, and do your pitch, and make it an exercise for your salespeople and whatever, your marketing team, and find out what messaging is missing or not being relatable by people whom, and so this is where the pushback I get from people is, well, I don't sell to those people, so what difference does it make?
Well, I hate that response.
Like, they're not my customer. I'm like, well, that's fair, but that's not the point. The point is that even the people that buy from you and that are educated about the buzzwords you're using,
right,
they still want to know what you do uniquely and why it's different. They don't know that. They may know what problem you solve because they have a problem with, data bifurcation or whatever the hell you want to call it.
Yeah.
But they don't know why yours is better or what makes it unique. And so, it's not just about explaining to someone that doesn't buy from you. It's like the exercise is more like you're at a party in your neighborhood with all your peers having dinner, and it inevitably comes up with the other guys. They say, so tell me what you do, Steve. Wouldn't you want to be able to tell them this in a way that has them all go, wow, that's pretty cool. Like, I don't need that, but I get it, and that's interesting. And 2 things will happen. One is that process is going to make you better at selling because you've just are articulating it more. Once you repeat it, you get better and better at it. The other part of it too is, it could be like, you know what, my buddy Bob has this problem and I'd like to introduce you to him.
Exactly.
Because at least he understands it. Like he can be what's called it's repeatable, right? So,
yeah.
Or shareable, right? So I want my message package to be something that I can give to you that's so clear that then you can take it with that clarity and give it to somebody else. Because now I'm not necessarily making you an ambassador, but I'm at least putting you in a position where you can call somebody up that you know and say it in a way that is clear enough that the person understands the reference. It doesn't happen enough. It ends with somebody. If I tell you something and you don't get it, I've cut the communication between me and this person. They're never going to walk away and remember it or say it again or share it with anybody because they didn't understand it. So why not be able to do that? I mean, there's no downside to this exercise. So I think I'm glad you brought this up because I do think that there's not enough engineering in place around messaging for companies. It's not a discipline in a company enough. It's not. So anyway, that's my rant for
And
the
I think
day.
it's I even say, even more so, it's not always about that demo and the pitch, right? It's also the headline on the website, the headline on the LinkedIn page, the slogan, because someone's going to land there and within 5 seconds, they need to know what you do or they're coming off the page. Confusion is going to kill the deal.
Yes.
So for most people, you have to put yourself in the mind of your buyers today. So the buyers are seeing 4,000 to 10,000 messages every single day.
Yep.
They cannot handle this. Their brains actually have a process where they tune out the messages for protection. I think it's called selective attention or something like that.
I think it's right.
Where
Something like that.
Their brains actually do this process where they tune it out.
I know mine does.
Yeah, because you can never handle it. So their nervous systems are already overwhelmed. No matter how smart they are, what their IQ is, what position they are, they could be the founder of a multi-million-dollar company, they are overwhelmed. So you have to make it easy and create clarity. When you do this, people will go further into your funnel. So for example, if they come to the LinkedIn page, right, like your headline, and it says something simple for me. It's like, okay, we teach B2B teams how to fully leverage LinkedIn to increase sales, right? Or to build a brand, pipeline, and revenue. I can't remember which one's on there now. That's pretty simple. Like anyone can understand that.
Right.
Because that's what we want. We don't want some weird, obscure slogan. Like we want people to understand when you come to my page, we train teams on how to use LinkedIn, period.
Yep.
That's it. Like make it very clear. But yeah, I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that with companies. They can't go further in the funnel. They get confused. So when they're confused, their nervous system's like, fight or flight. They click off the page, they leave. So you're killing deals before you even know about them, right?
Yep.
Your salespeople aren't even having a conversation because, again, your buyer's consuming 13 plus pieces of content on average before they talk to a salesperson, and they're 70% through the buying decision. So for that 70%, you have to set them up the right way.
Yes.
Like I would love if we sat down with grandmas and we showed them a website, just like that headline on the website. You know what I'm talking about? That headline and subheadline.
We're building better planets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making the world reconnected or reconnecting the world, right? And this is
All
like the
dumb
stuff that
stuff.
advertising agencies come up with as sort of like a headline for like a telecommunications company. We connect the world. Okay, I guess that's kind of true. You do. But, maybe that's probably not the best example because it's a utility. But let's say it's a really important, like what you just said. I was thinking about what you just said. So you're correct. Like you're very clear. You help companies unlock and use LinkedIn effectively to close more deals. Okay. Anyone reading that knows whether they have a LinkedIn problem or not. It's very obvious.
If they know what LinkedIn is, they know what
and
we
they
do.
know that they're probably having a problem with, like, I don't use it well, or
Yeah.
I've heard this thing that LinkedIn is really powerful and I'm not getting in much out of it. I want to know how.
And it's for pipeline generation.
Yep.
It's like,
The other
that's
part of it too, like there's another part of that. One is you've done a good job there, without doubt, of making it clear what you do. No one would doubt what you do. Then the second part is whether or not that's enough of a problem for them that they want to reach out to you and talk to you about it. And you don't know how to do that. What you're doing, which is smart too, is you're educating the marketplace who maybe don't realize what they're missing out on by not having LinkedIn be used properly, or the way in which their current LinkedIn strategy is actually costing them money as opposed to making them money because they're not clear about it. They don't know enough about it, right? So you've already done one thing, which is you've identified your niche, and then you're also educating people about the importance of that niche so that, it's not just people who we love it, right? I mean, how much would I love it when I have the rare people that reach out to me at the right time when they're hiring a CRO,
Yeah,
and right, I mean, it happens,
happens.
but it doesn't happen with enough frequency.
It doesn't happen enough to me either.
It doesn't. So it has to happen that I'm also educating them about what. Okay, I know this isn't a problem for you now, but it's going to be. And here's why, right? And so I'm getting people to go, wow, I didn't think about that before, and I didn't realize that, like, it's no different than someone saying to you, the way that you're currently managing your money is going to be a problem for you in 20 years. It may work for you right now, but if you manage it differently in 20 years from now, you wouldn't. So some people don't know how to think out 20 years. They're thinking like very much about right now, and they're fine with that. There's some people, however, like, they're more minded about, that makes sense. I'm now I have kids, and I have a family, and so I have to think a little bit more longer term. And you educated me about that. So I do think like there's a lot of messaging that's I would say it's like more like wider scope. The first part is at least I know what you do.
That's number one.
It has to be clear.
And you have to be clear as the owner of your company or a salesperson,
Yes.
like, what problem you solve. For us, we solve pipeline generation issues. We help people build a pipeline. It's up to them to close the deals. I can't go in the room and close it with them.
Same.
You want a pipeline? You want to put money in the pipe? I've got you.
Yep.
Other than that, I don't know. Like, you got to go close the deals yourself.
You got to close them yourself. That's right. Yeah.
Like,
we didn't get more business from you. Well, I mean, was it because you didn't have good leads, or was it because your salespeople suck?
Right.
I can help you with that. I got other people I know that can help you with that problem. But you hired me to fill your bucket up.
That's the thing.
And I filled up your bucket.
But they'll come to me and say, we want meetings. And I'm like, well, do you have a sales team who can learn the program to then book the meetings, right? Yeah. Because we're not going to do done-for-you outreach. You do the same thing, though. You educate people on the CRO role through your content, right? So we're both trying to educate people. And it's kind of a new wave because your whole CRO thing is a misunderstood area in the marketplace.
I'm correcting a misunderstanding or a misperception.
Same, though. Because LinkedIn, there is a misperception, too. They don't understand how building awareness on this platform, how content, how doing outreach the right way could result in building your pipeline and then increased revenue.
I think there's also a stigma around it. Like, it doesn't work.
Oh, it's such a stigma.
Yeah.
There's such a stigma. So we're both really coming from that place of education. Mm-hmm. And that's powerful. But the only reason we can do that is because we have clarity.
It's true.
We know exactly who we help, the problems they have. You can't educate somebody if you don't know the problems they have.
Yep. This is a specialization conversation, really, what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, we're talking about kind of everything. But
and well, I say it because it's an important thing. Is like in order for you to be able to articulate specifically what it is that you do, that means you have to focus on that one thing that you do, as opposed to trying to be a one-size-fits-all, So this is like a problem with consultancies and maybe even agencies whom, we do paid advertising, we do organic advertising, we do messaging, we do website design. It's like, well, you do all these things, but which one do you best at, If I have a problem with my organic growth, I'm going to probably go for an agency that only does that because I know that's all they do, which is likely that they're going to be better at it because they're focused on it. And I do think specialization is an interesting conversation. It's like, is it better to be a generalist or a specialist? And there's equal stories on both sides. I hear this a lot. And I tend to be more of a specialist mindset just because what I think is obvious. But what we're talking about is it ties back to messaging, which is it's easier for you to construct your message if you're focused.
And you're 100%. And you've helped me with this in the past because my company wasn't always this focused.
Right.
Like, let's be real.
You got to double down on something, and be the person that stands for that thing. And be trusted for that thing, and trust that there's enough people who want that solved, that your market is going to be utilized. I do believe it. I'll plug someone else's book right now, which you should read.
Okay.
It's a guy who's amazing. His name is Blair Enns. He's going to hopefully.
I did read this.
That book, the Win Without Pitching Manifesto.
Yeah, Win Without Pitching.
It's
yes,
amazing.
I did read it.
It's an amazing book, and that really helped me. I read that book, and it's so well written, and it sort of gave me confirmation that specialization is really the way to go, because his whole perspective is what you want to reach or attain expert status. Because when you attain expert status, you could charge more because people want to go for you for the thing that you're an expert at, right?
Yes.
And they perceive the value. They're like, I want the expert, right? And so the only way to achieve expert status is you have to be an expert at something, not everything, and you have to double down on, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this thing, and we're going to be the best at that thing. Are we going to be experts at that thing? And that's why people are going to seek us out, and that there's enough business out there for people that want that expertise. And I love that. It just really helped me clarify. I think a lot of people are chasing a lot of things.
They're
and
scared.
Yeah.
I was scared. I'm just being
because you're
honest.
afraid you're letting business go.
Yeah, and
when in fact it's all in your mind.
I had to it a little bit, like in 2023, and I know we have to wrap up soon, but in 2023, like I kind of burnt down Close, which was more of a lead generation company. We were doing done-for-you outreach, and I'm not going to go into it, but it wasn't converting as much. We're using automation and AI. People caught on to it. I was like, this isn't working. So I took a break and I took a step back. I was still actually working for an agency who does everything, right? And I was heading things up there as well. But yeah, it was a pinnacle period where I kind of had to decide like what I wanted to do. And I had to say no for a while to the things I didn't want to do and only yes to the things I wanted to do. And that hurt my income. But you know what? It didn't. Now it didn't, right? Long term, it did not. Exactly. In the short term, it did. Yeah. So if you're scared out there to niche down and to specialize, it might hurt your income right now. So get a buffer. But eventually, I promise it will pay off, because it always does, right?
It does.
Like, it really does.
This is why in the beginning of my course, I asked the question of everybody what your superpower is. And it's not just a cute little way of introducing things. It's for two reasons. One, it helps me understand somebody. When someone tells me what they're really good at, like they're best at, it usually is a frame for their personality type. People tend to be good at things, and what it is says a lot about them. But the other part of it, too, is I want to know if the thing that they know they're best at is the thing that they're doing. Because I've just found that it's not necessarily, I don't know, it could be your passion. I got no problem with people pursuing their passions. If you can do it, God bless you. But I think it's really critical to focus on the thing that you know that you are just amazing at. Because if you're really good at it, if you're someone whom you know when that thing is needed, you're the best person to do it, then the more you do that, the more you're going to succeed because you're great at it. So why not focus on that? So I think it's a cool way to sort of do a personal exercise and ask, okay, if I know the thing I'm great at, am I doing that? And if you're not, ask yourself why. And it's not a bad thing. It's just figure out how you could recalibrate to do the thing you're great at as often as possible.
Right.
I think two things will come out of it. One is, because you'll be really good at it, you'll become an expert at it, and people will want to work with you. And number two is, people like doing things they're good at. It's enjoyable, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, it's really fun when I'm really good at something and I get that sort of reward back from being great at something. There's like a very cool energy that you create. And I think that there's too many people I see who are like in the wrong job.
Oh,
I was in the wrong job for most of my life.
I've been in the wrong job too. You got to get the right people in the right seats. Gino Wickman, the book Traction. I'm going to throw another one out there. Okay. Great book, because it's so true. The right people in the right seats. And internally, life sucks when you're doing the wrong role.
It's hard, right? But look, I get it. I'm not naive. I know we have responsibilities and mouths to feed, and God bless people that do whatever they can. I love people who are like, they'll do whatever it takes. God bless them. But you want to arrive to a place where you have the choice to do what you want. And I see nothing wrong with that being a pursuit. And I know there might be some people that say, yeah, you know, look at you. You can do whatever you want. You know, I can't. You know, I got all these. I get it. I'm empathetic to that. You know, I know that someone who has to do something they hate because they have responsibilities, I actually respect that person a great deal. Because that's someone who I think is amazing, like that they'll do whatever it takes, great. But the goal is to make that temporary, to get to a point where you can do what you want. That's the goal, right? And there's nothing wrong with that pursuit. And I just like sort of, I guess maybe in a way here, I'm sort of like distilling down my sort of like core mission really, is I just would love to be in a situation where what I'm doing is helping people find the thing they love to do that they're really good at, not necessarily they love to, but the thing they're really good at, and that they do it. That would be like really cool, because I really do think that everybody would be the world would be better off, you know, if as many people as possible found themselves doing the thing that they were sort of, I know it sounds kind of cheesy to say born to do, but I don't know why it is that you're good at something. Like, who knows what the hell, why it is you're good at that? I guess. I mean, you know, I don't know, sure. But all I'm saying is that for some reason, we're good at something. And I think it's sort of like honoring yourself. And I think in a way, you know, the courses that I do and the trainings that I do, they're really sort of designed to have people sort of calibrate their competencies so that they're closer and closer to being like very aligned with who they are around what they're doing. Because I think ultimately that's how people end up getting successful in life.
Well, I love ending on that because I can tell you in going through your program, I did gain a lot of clarity internally and just even within my own company. Because at that point when I took it, I was, fully running Clohzers. So thank you for that. And that's a great mission that I think most people can resonate with.
Yeah, I think so.
Definitely go check out Warren. Where can people find you? Say LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best place. I mean, I have a lot of content there, and you can DM me or just follow me, and that's probably the best. That's my home, my headquarters in a way.
Yeah.
My LinkedIn profile and stuff.
Perfect.
But thank you. It was a really great conversation.
Thank you for coming.